Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. It's so good to have you with us today for a discussion that I believe is truly vital for our well-being, especially as we cherish our health in our golden years. We often think of a warm shower or bath as a relaxing ritual, a way to unwind before bed, to soothe tired muscles and prepare for a peaceful night's sleep. It seems like such a simple, harmless pleasure, doesn't it? But what if I told you that for some of us, particularly those over 70 or those with pre-existing heart conditions, this seemingly benign habit of showering or bathing at night could, under certain circumstances, become an unexpected and serious heart-breaking hazard? I want to share a rather sobering story that was reported some time ago. It concerns a gentleman, let's call him Uncle Guo from Nanchang. He was enjoying his retirement. One evening after dinner, he decided to take his usual shower before heading to bed. It was something he did almost every night. Tragically, during or shortly after his shower, Uncle Guo suffered a sudden heart attack and, despite efforts to save him, he passed away. This wasn't an isolated incident. Stories like Uncle Guo's, while deeply saddening, have sparked concern and led medical professionals to look more closely at the potential links between nighttime showering or bathing habits and the risk of acute cardiac events, especially in older adults. It might sound alarming to connect something as routine as a shower with a heart attack, but today we're going to explore this connection with a calm, informed perspective. We'll delve into what cardiologists and researchers are discovering about how showering at night can impact our cardiovascular system, particularly after the age of 70. Why might this everyday activity pose a risk? What are the underlying mechanisms? And most importantly, what can we do to ensure that our bathing habits remain a source of comfort and cleanliness without inadvertently jeopardizing our precious heart health? So, let's gently uncover this important topic together. To truly understand the potential risks we're discussing, it's important to know that this isn't just based on isolated anecdotes. There's a growing body of research and clinical observation by heart specialists around the world who are examining this very issue. While a specific study by 70 cardiologists, as a singular named entity, might be a way to emphasize expert consensus in popular health discussions, the underlying concerns are very real and are supported by numerous cardiological studies and the collective wisdom of many heart experts. These professionals, through their research and daily practice, are piecing together how various physiological responses to bathing, especially at night, can interact with age-related changes in the cardiovascular system and pre-existing heart conditions. These experts look at factors like changes in blood pressure, heart rate, blood flow distribution, and nervous system responses that occur when we immerse ourselves in water of different temperatures. They consider how these changes might be amplified or less well tolerated by an older heart, which may already be working harder or be less adaptable than a younger one. Their work is driven by a desire to identify preventable risk factors for cardiac events and to provide guidance that can help people, especially seniors, protect their heart health. So, when we talk about what cardiologists are explaining, we're referring to this broader scientific and clinical understanding. It's not about creating fear, but about sharing knowledge from trusted sources so we can make informed decisions about our daily routines. The authority and importance of this research lie in its potential to save lives by highlighting a seemingly small habit that could have significant consequences. So, what are the specific mechanisms that cardiologists point to when explaining how a nighttime shower or bath might trigger a cardiac event, particularly in vulnerable individuals? There are several key physiological responses at play, and they often interact with each other. First, let's consider the hot water effect. When you step into a hot shower or bath, the warm water causes the blood vessels in your skin and the superficial tissues of your body to dilate or widen. This is a natural response to help dissipate heat. As these peripheral blood vessels expand, a larger volume of blood flows towards the surface of your body, away from your core and vital organs, including your heart and brain. While this might feel pleasant and relaxing, for someone with an already compromised cardiovascular system, this sudden shift in blood distribution can be problematic. Your heart has to work harder to maintain adequate blood pressure and to pump enough blood to all parts of your body. especially if a significant amount of blood has pooled in these dilated superficial vessels. If the heart is already struggling, for example, due to narrowed coronary arteries, coronary artery disease, this increased workload and potentially reduced blood supply to the heart muscle itself can trigger angina, chest pain, or in more severe cases, a heart attack, myocardial infarction. It's a bit like suddenly asking an older car engine to work much harder while simultaneously reducing its fuel supply. Secondly, there's the issue of nervous system stimulation. Our body's response to temperature changes is partly regulated by the autonomic nervous system, which has two main branches: the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest response. When we expose ourselves to hot water, or especially if there are significant fluctuations in water temperature, like going from a warm room into a very hot shower or alternating between hot and cold water, which some people do, it can strongly stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. This stimulation leads to the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline. These hormones cause an increase in heart rate, a rise in blood pressure, and can make the heart muscle contract more forcefully. For a healthy young person, this might be a temporary and manageable stress. But for an older adult, especially one with pre-existing hypertension, high blood pressure, or an already irritable heart rhythm, this sudden surge in sympathetic activity can be dangerous. It can push blood pressure to unsafe levels, trigger arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats, or place excessive strain on a heart that's already working at its limit. Even a very cold shower, which is less common before bed but worth mentioning, can cause a similar, even more abrupt sympathetic surge and constriction of blood vessels, which is also risky for the heart. Thirdly, we need to consider the changes in blood circulation and heart burden in the context of the body's natural nighttime physiology. During the evening, and as we prepare for sleep, our body's systems generally start to slow down. Our heart rate and blood pressure typically dip to their lowest levels during the night as part of the natural circadian rhythm. Our blood also tends to become slightly thicker or more viscous at night. Introducing the physiological stress of a hot bath or shower with the vasodilation, the potential sympathetic surge, and the increased cardiac workload, at a time when the cardiovascular system is naturally winding down, can be particularly jarring. It's like trying to rev up an engine that's already in low gear and preparing to shut off for the night. This mismatch between the body's natural nighttime state and the demands imposed by a hot bath can be especially challenging for an older heart. The cumulative effect of these factors, the redistribution of blood flow, the stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, and the imposition of an increased workload on the heart during its natural rest period, is what cardiologists believe can elevate the risk of an acute cardiac event during or shortly after a nighttime shower or bath, particularly for those over 70 or with known heart conditions. These physiological explanations are further supported by data from various research studies that have looked into the effects of bathing habits on cardiovascular health. While it's important to interpret study findings carefully, some have pointed to concerning trends. For instance, research published in prestigious journals like the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, JACC, or similar cardiovascular publications often explores various lifestyle factors and their impact on heart health. Some studies looking at autonomic nervous system function have investigated how activities like bathing at different times of day can affect heart rate variability, HRV. HRV is a measure of the variation in time between consecutive heartbeats, and a lower HRV is generally considered an indicator of reduced cardiovascular adaptability and an increased risk of cardiac events and hypertension. Some findings have suggested that bathing late at night, for example, after 9 p.m., might be associated with a temporary reduction in HRV in certain individuals, implying a less stable cardiovascular state. Other epidemiological studies have looked at larger populations and tried to correlate bathing habits with the incidence of high blood pressure or coronary heart disease. While it's complex to isolate bathing as the sole causative factor, some research has indicated that people who consistently bathe very late at night or who take very long, very hot baths might show a higher prevalence of certain cardiovascular risk factors or even a slightly increased incidence of cardiac events, though these findings often need to be controlled for many other lifestyle variables. For example, if people who bathe late at night also have other habits like smoking, poor diet, or high stress levels, it's harder to pinpoint the bath itself as the primary culprit. However, the consistency of the physiological principles, the vasodilation, the sympathetic stimulation, the changes in blood pressure and heart rate, provides a strong rationale for caution, even if large-scale definitive studies on the exact timing of bathing and heart attack risk are still evolving. Japanese studies, for instance, have looked into the phenomenon of heat stroke-like symptoms, or even death during bathing, particularly in older adults, and have often linked it to the rapid changes in body temperature and blood pressure in hot baths, especially in unheated bathrooms during winter, where the temperature difference is extreme. While not always a direct heart attack, the cardiovascular strain is a key factor. These pieces of research, taken together with the known physiological responses, strengthen the advice from cardiologists to be mindful about nighttime bathing habits, especially for those in higher risk groups. It's about connecting the dots between our daily routines and what science tells us about how our bodies, and particularly our hearts, function and respond. It's crucial to understand that the risks associated with nighttime showering or bathing are not the same for everyone. Certain groups of people face a significantly higher risk due to their age, underlying health conditions, and the specific state of their cardiovascular system. Older adults, generally those over the age of 70, are at increased risk for several reasons. As we age, our blood vessels naturally become stiffer and less elastic, a condition sometimes called arteriosclerosis. This means they are less able to adapt quickly and smoothly to changes in blood pressure and blood flow. The heart muscle itself may also become thicker or weaker with age, and its ability to pump efficiently might be reduced. The autonomic nervous system, which regulates heart rate and blood pressure, may not respond as effectively or as quickly as it did in younger years. All these age-related changes make the cardiovascular system of an older person less resilient to the physiological stresses imposed by a hot bath or shower, such as the sudden vasodilation or the sympathetic nervous system surge we discussed earlier. A stressor that a younger heart could easily handle might push an older heart beyond its capacity. Individuals with pre-existing heart conditions are, of course, at particularly high risk. This includes people with coronary artery disease, CAD. If the arteries supplying blood to the heart muscle are already narrowed by plaque, the increased demand for oxygen by the heart during a hot shower, coupled with a potential decrease in blood supply due to peripheral vasodilation, can precipitate angina or a heart attack. Heart failure. In heart failure, the heart is already weakened and struggles to pump blood effectively. The extra workload imposed by a hot bath can overwhelm an already failing heart. Hypertension, high blood pressure. The sudden spikes in blood pressure that can occur due to sympathetic stimulation during a hot or very cold shower can be dangerous for those whose blood pressure is already elevated or poorly controlled. Arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats. Changes in body temperature and autonomic nervous system activity can trigger or worsen arrhythmias in susceptible individuals. History of stroke or mini-stroke, TIA. Since nighttime bathing can affect blood flow to the brain due to blood pooling in the periphery, those with a history of cerebrovascular disease might also be at increased risk. People with other chronic conditions like diabetes are also more vulnerable. Diabetes can damage blood vessels and nerves, including those that control heart function and blood pressure regulation, a condition known as autonomic neuropathy. This can impair the body's ability to respond appropriately to the stresses of bathing. Essentially, anyone whose cardiovascular system is already compromised, whether due to age or disease, has less reserve capacity to cope with the physiological demands of a hot shower or bath, especially at night when the body is naturally in a more quiescent state. This is why personalized advice from a doctor is so important, but the general principle is that the older you are and the more underlying health issues you have, particularly heart-related ones, the more cautious you need to be about your bathing habits. So, given these potential risks, what are the practical steps and recommendations we can follow to ensure our bathing routine is safe and supportive of our heart health, especially after 70. Cardiologists and health experts offer clear, sensible advice. First and foremost is the timing of your shower or bath. While there isn't a universally perfect time, the general consensus is to avoid bathing very late at night, immediately before bed, or when you are feeling overly fatigued. A safer window is often suggested to be about half an hour to an hour after your evening meal, and at least 1 to 2 hours before you plan to go to sleep. Why this timing? Bathing too soon after a meal can interfere with digestion, as blood is diverted away from your digestive organs to your skin. Bathing too close to bedtime, especially with very hot water, can actually raise your core body temperature and make it harder to fall asleep, even though it might feel relaxing initially. Allowing a couple of hours between your bath and bedtime gives your body temperature a chance to cool down, which is a natural signal for sleep. It also means your cardiovascular system isn't being stressed right before it enters its deepest rest phase. Next, let's talk about water temperature, duration, and other important precautions. These are crucial details. Water temperature. This is key. The water should be comfortably warm, not excessively hot. Aim for a temperature around 37 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius, approximately 98.6 degrees to 104 degrees Celsius. Water that is too hot, above 40 degrees C or 104 degrees, significantly increases the risk of dramatic vasodilation and sympathetic nervous system stimulation. If you don't have a bath thermometer, test the water with your elbow or inner wrist. It should feel pleasantly warm, not scalding. Avoid very cold showers too, as they can cause a sudden shock to the system. Duration of bathing. Keep your shower or bath relatively short. Prolonged exposure to warm water, even at a safe temperature, can still lead to excessive vasodilation and fatigue. Aim for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you enjoy a longer soak, ensure the water isn't too hot, and perhaps consider getting out and cooling down briefly partway through. Bathroom ventilation. Ensure your bathroom is well ventilated, especially if you are using warm water, which creates steam. Poor ventilation can lead to a stuffy, oxygen-depleted environment, which can also put a strain on your heart and lungs. Open a window slightly or use an exhaust fan. Avoid sudden temperature changes. Try to minimize extreme differences between the bathroom temperature and the water temperature. If your bathroom is very cold and you step into a very hot shower, the shock to your system is greater. Gentle movement. If you're taking a bath, avoid jumping in or out too quickly. Move slowly and deliberately. After your bath or shower, dry yourself gently and perhaps sit down for a few minutes before dressing, especially if you feel at all lightheaded. Listen to your body. This is paramount. If you ever feel dizzy, lightheaded, short of breath, or experience chest discomfort or palpitations during or after a shower or bath, get out of the water immediately, or have someone assist you, and sit or lie down. If the symptoms are severe or don't resolve quickly, seek medical attention. Finally, beyond just the act of bathing, managing your overall heart health on a daily basis is the most important foundation for reducing your risk of any cardiac event. Diet. Follow a heart-healthy diet, rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. Limit saturated and trans fats, sodium, and added sugars. Exercise. Engage in regular, moderate physical activity as approved by your doctor. Even a daily walk can make a big difference to your cardiovascular fitness. Sleep. Aim for adequate restful sleep, following good sleep hygiene practices. As we've discussed, consistent, well-timed sleep is vital for heart health.